All right, I guess we'll call the meeting to order. And I guess in my temporary chair position, I will go ahead and do that and call our meeting to order and get us started. Good morning, everyone.
Recording in progress.
Okay, great. And everyone should have just seen the recording in progress little tab pop up in our screens. All right. So I get, Laura, do you want us to go ahead and do a motion to approve the agenda? Do you want us to do that at the beginning of each meeting as well, or just follow along? Does that matter?
I would say that everybody brings their own good experience to the table. If you would like to do that, I do not see an issue with doing that. We do have a couple of attorneys in attendance here that can help out. Generally speaking, the council doesn't do that, but again, that's certainly something that Robert's rules envisions. So if you know how to do it, I would say go for it.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, we usually do that at our Odenton Town Center meetings, so I guess we'll just, all right, so I know everyone has a copy of the agenda. It went out, it's also public out on the website. Does anyone have any changes or comments on the agenda for this morning's meeting? And I guess seeing none, can I get a motion to approve our agenda for this morning?
Yes.
I see Tori first. And second?
Second.
That was Tom Fleckenstein. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great, awesome. And I guess we'll see how things continue moving forward here, but I guess for those that do have comments, I mean, obviously those with your cameras on, you can see your hands. If you have a comment, just try to raise your hand, or if you want to use the chat function, or just raise your hand that way too. That way we'll know during the meeting if someone wants to make a comment or ask a question going forward. All right, so our first administrative item is back to electing a chair and vice chair of our commission. We had a little bit of discussion about that the last time, and we kind of held that off. So I guess I'll go ahead and open the floor. If someone would like to make a motion for a chairperson or a vice chair, make them together as a duo, whichever our members feel comfortable doing, that would be great. And
I'd certainly be happy if let me put my hand up. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You can, or you can just jump in. It's fine too.
Right. I promise I will learn how to properly do the hand thing. My own personal thoughts, and I know all of us haven't really spoken as a group about this, but my feeling is, based on some of the conversations we had the last time, and some of the folks that were expressing some opinions and participating, my personal feeling is, and I would nominate Andrea to be chair. And I haven't talked to Mr. Snow about this, but I was impressed with his communication the last time. Thought that he had a lot of good information. I know of Mr. Snow a little bit personally and professionally, and I think he would be an excellent vice chair. So I would just throw those two out for initial discussion. Mr. Snow, not trying to throw you under the bus. I know we haven't spoken about that, but I hope you appreciate that comes from a place of respect and consideration.
Well, what goes around comes around, right?
You got me the last time.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly.
No,
I'm happy to serve however I'm needed. Seriously, this is a important process, and I'm happy to do whatever you guys need me to do.
And I thought, thank you, Tom. And I guess I'll just throw in. I know I kind of expressed a little hesitancy last time when Tori did kind of throw me under the bus, but that's okay. But I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, if you guys are willing, I'd be happy to serve as the chair if that's the will of the group. But I guess, do we have any other suggestions or nominations from the group for discussion?
Yeah, the only other thing I would throw in is, again, I think it was Tori who mentioned that you guys are familiar with each other. You have worked together on the Odenton Town Center Commission. It seems as though you've got a very good relationship professionally in that sense. It just seems to me that structurally, given that experience, given our timing, given the things we've got to jump into quickly, just seemed to be very sensible to me. And so that's really all I had to say on it. Obviously, haven't discussed this with, a whole host of you on the commission. And if anybody has other ideas, certainly willing to consider them.
All right, Tom, I'm not seeing any other ideas or any other hands. So, all right.
Okay.
So I guess then, Tom, I guess was that a motion? We take
Sure.
that
I would make a motion that we nominate Andrea as chair and Tori as vice chair of the commission, and open up for discussion.
I can second that motion.
Thank you, David. All right, guys, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, great. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your confidence, I guess. We'll see how we go.
Similar.
So I guess the next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from October 29th. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Any comments, corrections, suggestions? All right, I guess seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the minutes on the 29th?
So moved.
So moved. And David, that was you? Yeah, okay, thank you, David. A second?
I'll second.
All right, Tori, thank you. All right, all in favor of approving our minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, our next item then, and I know Laura sent this out for everyone's review, and I will definitely say this was not something to try to dictate or say how we do our work, because obviously it's for discussion purposes, but kind of like Stephen, and he was, being our catalyst to get the couple meetings scheduled, it seemed like we needed to have a more specific schedule in mind and how we want to get our work done, because I think we do have a lot of work to do in the next really kind of month and a half now to get these districts done and approved and sent on to them, to the county council for discussion and approval. So what I tried to do, I know Laura, thank you. She did the poll to identify some dates, and she was able to send those around. And I know it looked like we only had 2 dates where actually all 7 of us were available, but we had a couple other dates where maybe there were 5 or 6 of us available. So I think that's something we need to discuss, how we handle that. Definitely seemed that we need to be able to identify a couple new dates, additional dates for our meetings, which hopefully we can do that today. But just knowing kind of where we were with dates we did have in place and things, kind of just tried to lay out what seemed to be, a reasonable schedule for the next month and a half to get our work done on time, and we have these things done before Christmas. So hopefully all of us can then enjoy the Christmas holiday and not meet between Christmas and New Year's or anything crazy like that. I don't think I'm not sure we want to do that. So I can kind of just walk through, obviously, just to walk through briefly, November 12th, that's today. So we're kind of hopefully we'll have our schedule approved and a plan going forward and discuss next steps and have our first, at least GIS data review. November 16th did work for everyone. So my thought there was just to kind of help better educate us a little bit on legal requirements that we need to be aware of as we begin the process. Any relevant issues that maybe we should be aware of from 10 years ago when the Charter Review Commission met. If there's anything from other counties that maybe we should be aware of, or how their processes have been going, to have that discussion. And then really actually start digging into the data at that time, and what tweaks may need to be made to the districts going forward. I do think, having public comment is really important, but trying to have a public hearing on the front end seemed hard since we didn't have that much time. And we want to have the 2 public hearings, a virtual and an in-person one, after we have these districts pulled together. So it was really, my thought there was, with Laura doing the testimony tool, we could really work through the county executives, community engagement office, and with our council members to kind of get that information out, the testimony tool out to the public, so that way they can provide input that we can then have, before, you see roughly the November 30th meeting, where we would kind of be finalizing whatever our proposed districts would look like. So that would give us hopefully a week and a half or so for public comment to kind of play into that process. And I think the one outstanding issue would be whether we try to have another meeting in there to discuss as a group, or we try to do a smaller subgroup to kind of look at the data, to look at tweaks and things like that. And And then from there, the 30th, hopefully we could have some final proposed districts by that time, have our couple public hearings. And then, by late December, we'd have a finalized plan to present to the county council. So with that, I know I see a couple of hands, and I know, David, I saw your hand first. So David, we'll go to you, and then Greg, I'll get to you next. That's okay.
Yeah, so especially if the suggestion or the notion is that we want to try and get this done prior to the Christmas holiday, we're really only talking about a month worth of available dates. So I am totally comfortable with the notion of scheduling as many dates where we have a quorum that allow the work to move forward. And if it's a day where I'm not available, having the commission being able to still work forward. There's a lot to get done between now and a month from now, when the public has a chance to actually weigh on a substantive idea rather than a kind of a nebulous concept. So, I certainly want to make as many, I want to make them all. But I know that based on the results of the survey, we all weren't on the same page with regards to when all of us were available. So having some mechanism for communication either ahead of time, when we know what's going on, I think we need to probably not set a threshold of 100% participation, because I think the survey revealed the likelihood of that happening.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's going to be difficult in the next month for sure. Yep. Greg Swain.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Greg Swain. I'm the county attorney. I just wanted to introduce myself. Have a couple members of my staff here as well. Deputy County Attorney Lori Blair Klossmeyer, which I think you all have met, and also Kelly Kenny, who is one of our supervising county attorneys. Lori will most regularly be working with you, but she is going on a well-deserved vacation starting next week. So Kelly will be covering for her while she's out. But we've had some discussion amongst ourselves and also with Laura about the timing for the work of the commission. So I'll ask Lori to sort of fill you in on what our discussions have been and how the process, including the state involvement, unfolds. So Lori, if you can pick up the mic.
Sure. Good morning. So the basic question that we had, as you know, the census data came out very late this time, for this 10 years. And our charter ties your work on redistricting or actually even your appointment and all of your work to the release of the pension data. Somebody mentioned earlier that other jurisdictions are ahead of us. And when we looked at what their charters and laws said, they basically are tied to the census actually being taken. So they were appointed much earlier than you were appointed, and therefore have some ability to be a little bit further along in the process. So our question became whether you have to have your redistricting done for the 2022 election, whether there's something in law that would require that. We did a lot of digging and we found nothing. And it kind of makes sense, because you're under the charter, you are given 1 year to complete everything, the redistricting and the notion of a charter revision. The other thing is that normally this would fall in an election year, but it would be after the election. So it would be 4 years before the next election when you would be considering redistricting, or it falls exactly in the middle of an election cycle, meaning you would have 2 years, or there would be 2 years to complete redistricting. So this notion that, we can get redistricting done in 3 months is a little crazy. We spoke to the Board of the state, the local state Board of Elections, and I posed this question and didn't get a great, I got kind of so we went back and looked at the state law and we see nothing there. The state actually, their law says they have 2 years to do redistricting. And the only restriction on when they do redistricting is that it can't be 2 years before the next census. So they really have kind of this 8-year period of being able to do redistricting. So the other notion here is looking back at some of the historical materials that we've been able to pull together. Once there's a redistricting plan posed by this commission, It then has to go to the state, which is pulling together its redistricting and tweaking based on precincts, based on neighborhoods and things of that nature. So we just don't even see that it would even if you worked super hard and you came up with something by December, we just don't think that it could get through by February. So we wanted to throw that out there, that we don't think you have to have this done in time for the filing deadline for the 2022 election, which is in February. Laura can give you the exact date. And that you under our charter, which is the only law that we find that's applicable to what you're doing as far as timing, is you have 1 full year from appointment to complete both your redistricting task and your charter revision task. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions about that.
Okay, I see a lot of hands are going up immediately. So let me go to the commission members first. I guess, and Stephen, I saw your hand first.
Tori's hand was up first.
Tor, I'm sorry. You know, it was, but then
Mine was unrelated.
On my screen, and I lost track of you. Okay.
No, mine was unrelated. I do, but I'll let Stephen go first on this one, because I'm actually interested in this topic.
Sorry. So first, please share what it is that you received from both the local Board of Election and the State Board of Election with us, so that we can review what it is that they sent you in regards to the relevant charter provisions and the state law, so that we can at least review it and have a better idea of what their considerations were when they, when you all receive their information. They'll be able to help us make a better decision. It's harder for me to be able to think about what it is that you're saying, not having the relevant provisions in front of me. And, I do think that I was under the impression that we had to get this done before the primary, or not primary, but before February. And so I would say, I personally would prefer to continue with that timeline. And I think that that's something that can be done and accomplished in a way that's effective and still available for the council to review. But like I said, I would definitely like to review the information that you all received. I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Sure. So we didn't get anything from them in writing. We had a brief meeting. I know I was there, Laura was there. We had a brief meeting with them, kind of talking about, they're on a crazy timeline themselves, because they're doing a special session in December and then doing their redistricting. The plan they'll have a plan in December, and then it gets voted on during the regular session starting in January. The anticipation is that it will be done in January prior to the filing deadline. That's the anticipation. Whether that actually happens or not, can't say 100% for sure. But then it has to go to the Board of Elections for tweaking, and and I do have and I can share this with everyone, from the 2011 reporting commission, after the 2010 census. I do have some notes on from them about kind of what their process is, as far as, they have to take the congressional, the state legislative, the Board of Education, and the local information, and they have to kind of mesh it all together to tweak the precincts. So there is time, there's a lot of time involved there, but I don't know, they aren't giving us I didn't get good guidance on exactly what that is. So I can certainly share that with you, and the provisions that I looked at in the state law as far as timing of the elections. And your second question was going to staying on the same timeline. That's certainly your prerogative if you want to try to do that. As I say, I don't know what the guarantee is that it can actually be done in that period of time. But if everybody wanted to work towards that, it wouldn't be a problem. You wouldn't be precluded from doing it. Our point is just that you aren't necessarily tied to that February date. So.
Thank you.
Right. David?
Yeah, if you're able to provide, I guess, maybe 2 points of clarification, whether now or after looking, is the indication that we have 1 calendar year from the time we've been appointed to submit or to enact the changes? And the second question is, I'm not quite sure. I can't imagine that it would be an issue, but since our appointment date occurred prior to what will be the November election, we were appointed in October. Is there any consequence to passing the new districts prior to the general election as it relates to the residences of the candidates during that, that may or may not be impacted by what was a change when they filed? I know that if there's a change, they've got 6 months from the, prior to the election date to be able to get into their district. But if that change occurs after that 6-month threshold, is there any consequence of us passing a change that could potentially impact a candidate? That, if that question makes sense.
No, it does make sense. So the first part of your question was the 1 year. The 1 year is to report. So you were appointed in October, which means your report would be due in October of 2022. And we kind of looked at this timeline in the law office. So because next year is an election year, the council does not meet in November. So if you were to report in October, the earliest that the council could take up legislation would be December. So you're beyond the general election in that sense. So the question about the consequence of redistricting in the middle of the year, let's say, after the primary, but before the general, we don't think has any consequence, because it would be for the next election. And I believe the legislation, specifically the prior redistricting legislation that I've looked at, says that it has a section that says that it's effective for whichever election it's effective for, which would be the election in 2026. So that's the best that we have looked at on the timing. Yeah, you would have 1 year. The legislation wouldn't be enacted until after the next general election, and it would be effective for the following general election.
All right, Tom, I think you had your hand up next.
I did. My question was kind of along those lines, and it's for Lori as well. Lori, if you know this, or if anybody knows this, kind of historically, have we had situations in the past where the census has been done, the review commission has been appointed, we're supposed to be getting redistricting done, and yet the council was running campaigns and being elected in the previously existing districts?
Well, the answer to that would be yes, because, so as I said, this whole process falls, because it's done every 10 years, sure. An election every 4 years.
So in other words, there was an election in 2010, correct?
There was an election in 2010. The census data would have come out in probably after that election. So the big issue is when it comes out, for example, if it would have come out in 2020 when it was supposed to, the next election would have been 2022. But this issue of redistricting would have been taken up in the year would have run to the end of 2020, towards the end, closer to the end of 2021, so that the redistricting would have been done the beginning of 2022 when everybody's...
Right. Theoretically, we would have been finishing up our year essentially like now.
Exactly. Or earlier even. Yeah. So so obviously electioneering campaigning is beginning. And this council would have been taken up redistricting in the same election season as is occurring now, or could be occurring now. And that's going to, that's going to happen every time it falls in that 2 year gap. Like I said, because the elections are 4 years, the censuses are 10 years. You either get census data 4 years before an election or 2 years before an election. So every time it falls in that 2 year gap is when you have this kind of same running up against the election season type thing. It's just that it's so late this year.
But so like, for instance, in 2010, by 2014, when the council elections were held again, obviously the new districts based on the 2010 census were done.
Yes, that legislation was done in 2013, I believe.
Okay.
So they took a couple years to do it, to enact it.
Okay. But of course, they had the time to do that before the next election.
That was one of the ones where it fell in a 4-year gap. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just kind of thinking backwards. If it would have been in 2000, that election would have been 2006 and 2000. So we're more akin to what happened in 2000 because there would have been an election in 2002, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. If we had elections in 2010, we would have had them in 2006
Yes.
and we would have had them in 2002.
Yeah, I wrote this all down. I wrote the election years all down somewhere. I had to do that as a little exercise one day to try to figure it out. Yes.
So do you know, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, you may not have looked at this. When we did the elections in 2002, were they based on new districts or were they based on the districts that were in effect prior to the 2000 census?
I would have to go back and pull that. I didn't pull that one. I'd have to go. I do have the report somewhere.
Okay, no problem.
I have to go back and look exactly what yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, Lori.
And I think one of the other issues, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the other issues is that the primary dates have slipped earlier over the past couple of decades. I mean, I seem to remember having primaries more in like June, and I think now they're more like April. So
it used to be September if it was a non-presidential year. You're right.
Yeah. So I think that's another kind of factor. There would have been more time, even if you didn't start till later. You would have had a little more time for your filing deadline to meet the filing deadline. That may not have been a year, but it would have been a reasonable period of time. That's
actually a really good point. The filing deadlines used to be July then, as opposed to, I guess, February.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's February 22nd is the filing deadline. Is that right, Lori? Okay.
Yes.
Something. Yeah, Laura. Yeah, I think that's about right.
That's what it is. Yeah. If it would help Lori and commission members, one thing I can do is help to pull facts. So if it would help, I can certainly create sort of a matrix going back in time and sort of comparing these dates that you're talking about, because I think a snapshot could certainly be helpful to show, when a commission came together, when an election year might have been, when a redistricting bill was put together. I can go back and do that, for the past 20 years, if that might be helpful to you.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Okay.
That would be helpful. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Tori, do you want to have comments on this discussion, or?
Sure. No, a few things have come to mind. I think the first question is that if we were to opt with the suggestion or recommendation from the legal department, does that mean if we complete our work October of 2022, that a new county council would be voting on the districts?
Yes, because there is no legislation.
Right. Okay.
Produced or heard. Everything dies at the end of October, any legislation, and the new council would come in the first Monday in December and they would introduce any redistricting legislation.
So the only benefit to rushing through the process right now would be to give the current council the opportunity to review and vote on the maps. Am I understanding that correct? I mean, not the only benefit, but I mean, that would be the biggest implication would be who votes on the new map.
If it's done in time, it would be this council. Or if it's done any time before in less than a year, it would be this council, most likely.
Thank you.
Okay. Larry?
So Lori, because we're under a tight timeline, after we recommend a map, it goes to the State Board of Elections. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Is there any legal hurdle that could be thrown our way from a citizen, an outside group, et cetera, that would slow the process down of the transmittal of the plan from our committee to the State Board of Elections to review it?
Any hurdle thrown? So something that occurs in the process from you coming with your plan to sending it to the state board.
Correct.
I I have to go back and look. I mean, obviously the challenges come in once I know there are challenges that come in once the districts are legislated. Obviously people complain about districts. Now, whether someone could file some type of injunctive action on the recommendation, I always say people can sue for anything. I mean, that's like, so whether that would be successful, I don't know. I guess that's always a possibility that someone could file some injunctive actions based on what you are presenting.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if Greg and Kelly have any different feelings on that. I could see that. Whether it's ever happened, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at
So as far as the process goes, so I mean, our recommendation would first need to go to the county council for approval, wouldn't it? Before it goes to the state board of election to be finalized? Or am I not understanding that, or is that not the appropriate step?
Well, your report goes to the council, that's correct. But the state board does have this role in kind of tweaking the boundaries somewhat. So, and maybe Laura has some historic information on how that's actually happened in the past as far as transmitting and them taking when they exactly look at it and that sort of thing. But
hi, this is Laura. I can certainly chime in with what I've learned. The Board of Elections has basically said that they sort of have a mathematical role all along. They're obviously getting maps from different places and trying to reconcile things. And what did happen in 2013, I believe it was, there were 3 redistricting bills. One was defeated, one was passed. That one that passed actually had to, there was a cleanup bill that was necessary. And that was specifically because when the Board of Elections did their reconciliation, there was some sort of offset of certain lines. And so it was more mathematical. They were reconciling things and correcting things. And so the corrective bill was appropriate. They're pretty much just there to help get things right, not necessarily make decisions, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Okay, I mean, I guess I would like to see, Laura, if you are able to, pull that information together just to kind of, for us to see a history. And let me first, do I see any other hands up? Tom, did you have another comment? I see your hand is still up. Is that, or just want to make sure I'm not overlooking. Okay, cool. Right.
I swear I'll figure this out, guys. I'm sorry.
It takes a while. That's right. So, I mean, I guess generally I'm not sure. I'm not sure we really need to make a decision about that today. I'm kind of feeling a little hesitant that, I guess from my perspective, if we can get the work done, I would like to see us be able to get our work done. And I understand the issue with the Board of Elections. And, I know there's definitely a lot with the special session and the General Assembly taking up their districts and so forth. And, I guess I'm kind of also, I'm sure they're going to put in the effort. And I know there's always uncertainty, but if they're going to be able to get their work done, I'd like to think we could get our work done too and present something to them. I guess, I know we need to start reviewing the data and having those discussions, but also not sure at this point, how, are we talking about tweaks? We might just be talking about tweaks to districts based on where population has grown in a couple areas, which doesn't seem to make it quite as difficult. I can be totally wrong though, once we dig into this and maybe we see some other things that we need to consider. But I guess from my perspective, and I guess we want to know how the rest of you feel, it seems there was a little hesitation. It's a need for some more information, but I guess I would like to propose we kind of continue down this road of having some proposal done, hopefully by the end of the year. It sounds like maybe, I'm not sure when the council meets in January, if we would need to do maybe an early meeting in January to finalize before our report would go to the council, but maybe we could play with that a little bit too. But I guess I would like to propose at this point, we kind of continue moving down the line that we're going to have a proposal to them in a reasonable time frame, the next month or so, month and a half, and then we kind of, unless we find something different when we get more information, then we can kind of bring the discussion back up for, determine if we want to make a change to that approach. And I see a lot more hands, so let me go. All right, David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to setting forth a goal of trying to accomplish this in the original timeline, but I also don't want to dismiss Lori's input, which is the experience and the knowledge of what's likely going to be taking place once what happens in the timeline in real world rather than in our ideal. And secondly, I'd like to make sure that if any time during the course of the process, any of the commission members are feeling like we're glossing or that we're not hearing their opinion or perspective with regards, because I'm sure that for many people, there is a real concern about authentic representation on the council. We want to make sure that we're making clear, calculated decisions about how the people of Anne Arundel County are represented on the council. And in my opinion, and again, if there's 6 of you who disagree with me, that's the beauty of the democratic process. But in my opinion, it's more important for us to get this right than it is for us to get it done fast. And I know that has a consequence in the next election, but I don't want to see us continuing things that people feel is a practice of inequity. And I don't want to see us be in a position where we're feeling like we just don't have adequate time to receive sufficient feedback, whether it be from our legal team, whether it be from the public, whether it be just to reflect on the time during what is a particularly chaotic window of the year for most people anyway. But again, happy to be one of 7 if I'm the only one who feels that way.
No, thanks, David. I mean, those are definitely relevant considerations as we go into the process. Sure. Yep. Tom?
Fascinating information there. I agree with David. Some things I hadn't known and hadn't considered. I tend to think the following, though, as we were going through it and listening to it, my thoughts were evolving. I think personally we should continue to try to meet the quote unquote deadline and the schedule that we have discussed from the beginning. And there's a number of reasons for that. One, I think getting the districts done and getting that information to the council so that they can be used as quickly as possible, I think is really still the best thing for the citizens of the county, for the council, for representation. Tori's point, I thought was actually a very good one. If we wait too long and you end up with a dead time where the legislation has to be picked back up, causes another delay. I do think there's some consequence to having a different council than the one that has worked through this, particularly the council that has appointed this Charter Review Commission, ultimately deciding on the legislation. I don't think that's insignificant. I think having a fallback of not having to get it done legally may end up being a good thing. But I mean, certainly the legislature at this point, from all accounts, they're going into special session shortly. Their goal, and I would assume their anticipation, is they're going to try to have the legislative and congressional maps done in such a way that they are going to be used in the 2022 elections. And so certainly, I think that is probably a bigger task than ours is, as far as getting districts done here. Now, granted, there's probably likely to be more lawsuits, and maybe at the end of the day, they don't meet that goal. But I think it's important for us to try to remain consistent with that. I mean, I think it would be, I don't know how good it would be for the citizens to have your legislative and congressional districts and your Senate districts electing based on your new districts, and some councilmanic districts and other jurisdictions doing their new districts, and we're using the old ones. So for a variety of reasons, I think we should stick to our plan, try to get them done, but knowing that if we don't, as David says, we have no idea what might come up. We may dig into this data and completely all agree that it's not a possible task. And I think it's good we've got the fallback, but ultimately, I think we should stay on track and try to get it done, get it to the council before January.
Tori?
So I think this discussion has been fantastic so far. And thank you, Thomas, for your remarks. And David, I mean, David pretty much echoed what I was thinking. I can tell you, I was cursed with an analytical, nerdy mind since I was a kid. And so I've actually spent a lot of hours just using some of the open source applications about our district. And I can just tell you, at least from my perspective, I don't get the sense that this is going to be an easy fix. I'm thinking about things that are going on culturally. I'm thinking about the representation that we've had on the county council and the opportunities that are before us based on the way that our county has developed over the years. And of course, my main focus is making sure the community is represented. So, I mean, I understand, we definitely want to be part of the upcoming election cycle. And I think that we should work to that goal. I'm kind of a mind of the middle, right? So, do I think that getting the maps in December is really aggressive? Yes, especially seeing the things that I saw, right? I mean, if we just try to keep the status quo, then this is an easy goal to meet. But I mean, I'm telling you, I've been listening when I've been hearing people talk about the representation. We haven't had Black voices on the council, and we have a lot of opportunity. Our community is very diverse. So to me, I tried to remove that bias and tendency towards the standard and try to say, can we do this right? I really agree with David that we probably ought to at least leave ourselves some room to maybe think outside of the box on this and maybe, think about how we're represented here in Anne Arundel County. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Anyone else? Stephen and Larry? Yeah. Okay. Ashley, see your hand is up.
I agree with Thomas and basically the general sentiment that while I recognize the importance of this deadline, it does seem like we've got so many possible roadblocks that I'd much rather see it done correctly. But I really don't think any of us can make this determination until we actually get into the data. And so, I think we should continue on with our schedule. We should continue on with these additional meetings that we would like to have and see how it's going. We can't make a determination of what we're going to do in 2 months when we don't know what we're being handed quite yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, it seems like then we're pretty much, and David, your hand went back up.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, and this will be very brief. But
okay.
to Tom's point, remember that by extending it, we don't necessarily have to wait until October to present it. So we could present if and again, Ashley, Tom, everyone who said, let's keep going at it, couldn't agree more. I just don't want us to be pigeonholed into forcing it to happen. But we also can present something in June, to Tom's point, and allow the current council to be able to still make the decision since they did appoint us and not be stuck in that dynamic where we're handing it over to another council.
Okay, great. All right, and it sounds like that we're all in agreement. We're going to continue to forge forward in the hopes that we can complete our work, and we'll kind of, as we learn more and get more into the data and so forth, we'll have this discussion at a later date if we feel we can't get our work done in time, and we can kind of readjust our goals and expectations accordingly. So, all right, great. Sounds good. I guess then as far as our schedule going forward, it looked like all of us, honestly, Laura, I can't remember how many of us could do the 16th or the 22nd. I want to say it was maybe 6 of us.
So I had everybody available November 16th, December 13th. I had 5 people available on November 17th and November 22nd, and then 6 available on November 29th, November 30th, and December 1st.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have all of us on the 16th, or 5 on the 22nd. And I guess I'll throw, do you guys, since we had, are these dates generally okay? I know we needed a couple more in the December timeframe, especially for another public meeting, but Are those the next couple dates, the 16th, 22nd, and 30th? Would you prefer?
The 16th we're getting together in person. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the proposal for the 22nd? That's a date that is not great for me, but I think that's one of the dates, Laura, I indicated I wasn't available, correct?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
and I thought that I felt in order, if we were, if we're really moving down this path to get our districts together, that could be another meeting where we could just dig into the data more. And well, I guess I would say I kind of was envisioning possibly two tracks based on what the group's will is. But one, if we wanted to just have the discussion about districts as a group with all of us present, or if we wanted to have a subgroup kind of hash through some of the things and then bring a proposal back for all of us to consider. And I'm not really wed on either approach. I was just trying to think through, knowing there were some difficulties in getting all of us together at certain times, that if we had a subgroup that was available, maybe they could meet, maybe 3 people could meet and do that and bring the proposed districts back for our discussion. But okay. I'm totally open to that.
Are we thinking of putting some more of these on the calendar so that they're there, even if it only means we've got a quorum, that type of thing? Okay.
Yes, that's my thought. Yeah.
I think that makes good sense. Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry, Laura, you said we had 6 people on the 29th, and how many?
29th and the 30th. I had 6, and then on December 1st, I also had 6. And again, it would help me track this stuff for you guys if you decided on the 9 to 10 or 10:30 spot, which I think would be a Zoom meeting, or if we're doing it 7 to 10, and I think Mr. Kaufman had proposed that maximum there. That would be in person in the chambers in that case, right?
Okay, yeah. All right, so we'll definitely have the 16th will be in person in the chamber. I guess, does anyone have a preference once we start talking about the data in more detail in districts? Is there a preference as to how we handle that? Would you like a smaller subgroup? You want to do that together as whatever quorum we have in place at a meeting?
It sounds like by virtue of the fact that everyone's not available for each of the meetings, it's going to be that. I think as long as we're having at least a meeting a week, I think that's valuable. If we're truly serious about moving this and having a proposal for the public to consider on the 16th, I think that minimally weekly meetings are going to be required. And if you've got 6 people, Laura, I don't know whether or not if we're doing 2 meetings the week of the 29th, if there's a way to make sure that the 2 meetings don't take the same person out for each of the meetings, so that we're not, we're being respectful, making sure that we're not leaving anybody off just by nature of their own personal schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 meetings back to back sounds, I don't know. I guess it sounds a little difficult. I'm not
how much would we accomplish one day and then the next?
Yeah.
Certainly
so I guess if
makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, so David, you were saying like a meeting a week. So I guess if we did that, that would be the 16th, the 22nd would be the next week, the 30th. I will say I have a conflict. I'm going to be out of town December 1st through the 8th. And that doesn't mean you can't meet without me if everyone else is available.
I heard Tori's the vice chair, isn't that?
I know. Exactly. I was like, Tori, it's on. Yep.
so that Laura, you said the 29, 30, and 1st were all 3 dates during that week. So any of those dates could be an option for that day, for that week.
That's exactly right. Yes. And I think if everybody could, chime in like Mrs. Mansfield just did and say not available the 1st, so we could cross that off. So I've just circled November 22nd and November 30th as possibilities.
Is the 29th still an option? Because the 30th, I do have a conflict.
29th would work for me, if that's better.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I can do the 29th as well. I think I was open for both dates. Yep. Larry, I see your hands
both
up.
Mondays too, I will point out. So that kind of would make it nice. That would mean that you would have a Monday spot. And are you interested in doing this in person in our chambers in Annapolis, or were you thinking Zoom a different time?
I mean,
The county council is one of those nights, isn't it? Or is it? No, they don't meet that time. So never mind.
It's a 5 Monday month, so we like those.
Yeah.
I think that would be based. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just think that would be based on who's like if we're doing consecutive evening meetings and it boxes the same person out, then it's a matter of maybe trying to do one as a day. As I mentioned last month or last meeting, the evening times are much better for me, but I'll make it work when on days that I am available.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable doing it in person if everyone else is. Sometimes I just think I don't know, people can relate to each other a little bit better when you're sitting there in a group and being able to talk about the issues versus online. But I like being with people, so just be me.
A quick question for the legals. Is there any restrictions on adding times for our committee on the fly? Is there any kind of announcement in advance we have to give the public when we're meeting? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, because this committee is subject to the Open Meetings Act, you have to give reasonable notice. Reasonable notice obviously is not defined, but it does have to have time to be posted, usually on the internet, and so the public can see that you're meeting. So meeting on the fly, if you mean a day or two, you're probably okay. Probably not 8 hours or something like that would probably not be reasonable.
So if we met on a Tuesday and at the end of Tuesday decided, hey, let's meet again on Thursday, you think that would pass all your legal tests?
Yeah, you'd probably be okay with that. That as long as it's posted, after your meeting on Tuesday, you'd probably be fine with that.
Good. Thanks. Good question, Larry. Thank you. All right. So then we know we have the 16th. I guess we'll do the 22nd. We prefer the 29th over the 30th. Is that what
These are all in the evening, right? 7 to 10?
Yes. Yeah.
I was able to clear my commitment toward the 22nd as we're doing it 7 p.m. in town. Could we also possibly say, since we're really getting up to the deadline, that we'd like to aim for the 29th with just kind of a possibility of, wasn't the first another day that the 6 of us or 6 out of 7 were still available? I know that Andrea, you were not available, but
right.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
I was just thinking if we get together and we're on a deadline, we may be able to move.
Okay. All right, so we're adding in the 29th and the 1st and taking out the 30th, or we wanted to highlight all three? Kind of got lost a little bit. So we'll just say
I like the idea of skipping a day.
The 20, yeah. All right, so November 29th, and then we'll add in December 1st. Okay. And then we can still keep December 13th as a public hearing date. All right. And then we probably need one more public hearing date. And given the time frame, whether that would be, I don't know, December 9th. Well, also, I mean, as I said, I won't be available, but if everyone else is on the 8th or the 9th is a possibility, I'll be back. Or if we wanted to try to double up the week of the 13th and do an in-person and then a virtual.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that if possible, could we consider our public meetings in such a way that we capture the broadest set of our community so that we're not just targeting the 9 to 5 corporate workers, but that we give other members of our community an opportunity, parents, people that work non-typical shifts. That might be a good setting for the virtual, but I just wanted to, that was my thought. If we're going to do two public meetings, that we give both people an opportunity, because right now it's kind of limited to the traditional work schedule. So.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking our public hearing, would be in the evening as well as our virtual hearing? Is that, no, Larry, I see your hand is up. And then.
All right, I gotta take lessons from Tom about how to do this too. There we go.
Okay, great. All right, Stephen.
I agree with what Tori said in terms of having the broadest possible cross section of our community being able to provide input. And I think, a weekend would also be helpful to avoid just having 9-to-5ers, or even allowing 9-to-5ers, I should say, to participate. And I think the 11th might be a possible date for that. The other thing I wanted to say was I would do one, yes, virtual and in person, in order for us to be able to do that. I think that the 13th would probably be better in person. And if we could do, either virtual or in person on the 11th, or I think 18th. Let me think about that, because the 18th would be after that. So yeah, the 11th, definitely not the 4th, because that's my birthday.
All right, we'll give you that.
I'll second the 11th.
Those are my thoughts in terms of like having a meeting on a Saturday, possibly in the morning, in person or virtual. It's not really, to me, I don't think in person or virtual is a issue for a Saturday meeting. But if we do have a meeting that's going to be during the week, I hope we can have a virtual option due to the traffic and being in Annapolis. Mostly we're going to be in Annapolis, so we have a virtual option. That'd be much better for me, and I think better for people to be able to communicate at a public hearing.
Laura, so in terms of having, I guess that would be a hybrid. If we allowed virtual testimony and in-person testimony, that's something that's difficult to do, or do you have the capability for that or not?
At this time it is. So I'm wondering if maybe if you do the December 13th date, 7 to 10 would be an in-person public hearing in Annapolis. We would use our chambers. And then if you can come up with maybe another date that might be maybe 9, that starts at 9. I'm not certain if that's, I'm trying to listen to everybody's comments here. And that one could be virtual. Obviously, I think you have a little more flexibility anyway with virtual, and because people don't have to travel to a particular location. So 7 to 10 in Annapolis would be also kind of build upon a lot of the sort of expectations that are already out there in the world, because, the chambers, the Arundel Center, 7 to 10, I mean, that's, a lot of people have that already carved out in their schedules if they're looking to participate. So that's another idea. If you come up with a second date, I could certainly support creating a virtual meeting for you. I would not be able to do a hybrid meeting at this time because we don't have the technology yet.
Okay. All right. And Stephen, how do you guys feel about a Saturday virtual meeting? And I'm fine with that. I was thinking we may have to meet on the weekends anyway, just to get our work done at one point. So that's totally fine. Tori, your hand's up. Do you have a comment on that?
No, I did have a comment, but it left my mind. So I'm sorry. I'll remember in a second.
I think I think a Saturday virtual meeting is good. But if we're going to do a Saturday meeting, I would prefer to open it up for people to come to it. That may not have had the opportunity to come to Annapolis between 7 to 10 on a weekday. That's kind of where my thoughts are on that. If we do a weekday virtual public hearing, I think that'd be more beneficial for people. But again, I'm available all days at any time. So, not any time, but, I'm available for these meetings.
All right, all right, I see a couple more hands. So David?
Yeah, so I philosophically have no problem with doing a weekend meeting. I'm just not available on any of the Saturdays between now and that meeting. On the 4th, I'm going to New York to celebrate Stephen's birthday. But again, philosophically, I understand what you're going at. I'm just, there isn't a time on any of the Saturdays in between now and the 13th where I'd be able to attend. But again, if 6 other people or 5 other people, quorum is able, so that people have a chance to have an input, because the purpose and focus there is so that people can get heard. I will certainly pay attention, and if it's whether it's recorded or transcripted, I'll certainly give attention to what people that are communicating are sharing.
Okay, Tori?
Yeah, I definitely want to echo Stephen's remarks about getting people an opportunity to get in the chambers. This is something that I've been pretty passionate about for quite some time with all of our public institutions. The other thing that I was thinking is that we did discuss a public input tool in which people can submit testimony. And so I think a more clear understanding of that, I think we just as members of the commission are going to need to really be familiar with it and probably function as community liaisons to make sure people can provide input on that. So I'm unfamiliar with it. So as we get through, maybe at our next meeting, we can probably discuss how we can really push that hard, not just passively put it out there, but really make sure we're putting this information in front of people that need it so they can provide their input.
Yep. All right. So I guess in the interest of kind of moving our discussion along a little bit, because I know it's an hour, and unfortunately I have a 10:30 meeting, so I can't be on past 10:30. But why don't we go ahead? I know we have a number of dates identified already. So we have the 16th will be in person in the chambers. We have the 22nd, the 29th. We're adding in December 1st, and we know we have at least one public hearing on December 13th. Which gets us 6 more meetings. So we know we have those kind of locked in place. So why don't we go ahead and do that? And then before our next meeting next week, maybe we can all look at our calendars a little bit more, and maybe I can work with Laura to identify maybe another date that might make sense for a public hearing, and we can finalize that on the 16th. Does that sound good? All right, awesome. Okay, good. All right, at least we have a plan. We're moving forward. Let's go. We have goals. I know we were scheduled for an hour this morning, and we haven't gotten to the data discussion or the mapping tool yet on our agenda. Does everyone have a few more minutes to do that? Does that give us sufficient time to talk about the mapping tool? Should we just hold that for the 16th?
I'm good for a few more minutes as well. So if we've got somebody who's prepared to do that, why don't we jump in if that's okay with the rest of you?
Yeah, this is Mark. I'm prepared to talk a little bit about the data this morning and to talk about how everyone can have access to the data that we're developing.
Okay, great. Mark, the floor is yours.
Okay. So working with our Office of Information Technology, the GIS group, we were able to create a group for the commission here. It's within our ArcGIS portal. Everybody should have received an email saying that they were invited to the group. I knew this happened late yesterday. We were moving some data over and some got lost in the process. So what I'm going to show you this morning is some of the stuff that we're still working on to get back into the portal. If you do have any questions on how to get into our portal, please let me know, and I'll help you troubleshoot that. What I'd like to do this morning is share a story map that I created with some help from the research and GIS section team members. So if you don't mind, I can share my screen here. Okay, and just let me know if you can see Census 2020 story map. Yes, can you see the screen? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so what this is a story map. It's an Esri product. And Esri is a mapping software development company. This story map allows us to give us some information. So provide a little information on what the census is, some census geography hierarchy, and the definitions of the census data that we're using. We talk a little bit about how the geographies have changed from 2010 to 2020 with a little example here. And then we get into some population dashboards. And so what we're looking at here is the total population for 2020 compared to the county and the different districts. If we want to just see the county population, and click on county here, and hopefully, there we go. You can see the outline of the county highlights, and we can see the population from 2010, 20, and then the adjusted population from the state of Maryland. This is for each district also. So if we click on District 1, it breaks it down for us. If we want to pop this out into a new window and look at the dashboard itself, we can use this button right here. If you just want to see the dashboard, you can also pop out the chart itself. We did receive adjusted data, population data, and other statistics from the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission. The data has been downloaded. And you can see here we have, a dashboard of that adjusted data, the same kind of functionality that you can click through. This is a comparison of the adjusted data and the 2020 census data. All the categories broken out here. This does look a little unruly, although if you bring it down to the county or the district level, I'll give the map a second to react there. Okay, there we go. You can see when you filter for the district, you can all the different populations. You can also hover over anything in the charts and get the statistic. Took a look at voting age census data. That's everybody over the age of 18 years old, and broke that out for the county and each district. The adjusted data also. What's missing here is some change data. Tell me if you can see the screen flipped over and the map changed. No? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing it and reshare. The data that I was talking about whenever that story map was first developed, it was developed in ArcGIS Online, which is another component of Esri. Moving it into our portal, some of the data links were broken and some of the data was corrupted. So what I'm going to show you right now is the raw data that we're going to share back up to the portal and get tables out for everyone. Okay, can everybody see the map now with the red, reds and yellows on it? Okay. Right now we're looking at the total, the difference between total population in 2010 and 2020 for the council districts. And for the county, the center number here. If we click on any of the council districts, where's that pop-up going to come up? If I can, came up on another screen. But the pop-up would show, here we go, all the statistics that we have for the district. That will be included in your web mapping applications and as tabular data. So we're looking at the change from 2010 to 2020. And we can also look at the percent difference or the percent of change for each district. I think I can label that with the, oh, there we go. The percent change comes up in the label. So we'll be able to see how these districts have changed, what statistics the districts have changed on, and plan out a way to reapportion if we need to, or redistrict if we need to. Any questions about data or data needs or requests that you may have right now?
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
So Mark, if I'm looking at this right, it looks like there's been gigantic population changes in what I would have called in the old days North County, which is basically council, I guess, 1, 2, 3, and 4, something like that. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, you were looking at that right. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're seeing it increase and change, 15 to 18% in those areas.
Okay, thanks.
Tori?
Yes. So you said we should have received an invitation to access the application. Where would that email come from?
It should have came from our OIT GIS section or division. If you did not receive one, let me know and we can make sure that that gets sent out to you.
Yeah, could you resend, Mark? Because I don't recall receiving one. I'm seeing some head shaking as well.
No worries. Yeah, this is something new we're trying. So if it didn't reach you yet, we'll work to get that to you.
And what should that like who it's from? What should that pop up looking like?
It should be OITGIS at Anne Arundel AACounty.org. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. Keep my eye on.
Yeah, I was looking at the group this morning, and everyone has been added to it. So if you are having an issue accessing it, or if you haven't received that invitation, we can get that back out to you guys.
So I guess at our next meeting, I guess would you be able to go into more detail of the districts, exactly, what the population changes were demographically and all that, and actually give us a better snapshot of each of the districts and how that goes? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have static and web map products for you to view.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I need to raise my hand.
That's okay. Go ahead. Jump in.
I was just wondering about the public comment aspect of it. Is that also in there, or is this just for us?
This is the story map and dashboards in any of our web mapping applications can be made available to the public. We can work on a public comment application. We've done that for a couple of our planning efforts recently. And I've been speaking with staff about helping create that for us if we want to go in that direction.
And you said in terms of raw data wise, I was wondering in terms of whether or not we can communicate with you about that, because I'm not an expert, and it would definitely help to be able to have a conversation outside of this meeting.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be available to talk about data when you need to.
Great. Larry?
Mark, one more quick question. Do you have the population changes from the previous commission from 10 years ago? In other words, are we looking at sort of similar changes we're looking at 10 years ago, or has the county population changed between 2010 and 20 differently than between 2000 and 2010?
I would have to go back and look at that data. We haven't looked at it yet.
Okay, thanks.
Stephen, go ahead.
I was just wondering in terms of communities of interest. I know that's a big thing that we're going to have to be considering. And should we send you a list, or is there and that way we can kind of identify how to overlay some of these maps regarding communities of interest?
If you have communities of interest, you can send them to me, and if we have like a community boundary or something like that to identify the area, we can put that on the map and overlay it with the statistics.
Can I add something to that? Christina Pompa from the Office of Planning and Zoning. We should have a layer for communities of interest, Mark, because I think it's in the GDP.
Okay.
Great.
So we already have a layer but just not available on this story map.
We could, if it does exist, we can add it in.
Okay.
So we can take a look and even develop it to show whatever statistics you would like to show.
Okay.
Right. Is that something you think you could have for the 16th meeting, or what? Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So any other questions about the data mapping tool piece right now? Tori, did you have another comment?
Yes, just real quick. Would it be possible whenever updates are made to the platform, if we could just get a notification to the team, just a quick note saying, hey, we added this?
Sure.
Thanks.
Great. I guess a quick question for Laura. So as far as the testimony tool goes, How soon will that be functioning? So we can start letting members of the public know.
So that is pretty much ready to go. We've been working on building it. Actually, the web team has helped me significantly with that. I think I just needed to understand sort of the overall plan and how that piece would fit into the puzzle so that we can get it out there. I think my big question for you all was, we could sort of put it out there anytime soon to accept general feedback, but then we probably need to talk about how we refine it a little bit to add specific feedback once we start getting data out or maps out, numbers and things like that. And then of course, next year sometime we'll need to talk about refining it even more to reflect charter feedback. So I guess one idea is doing sort of and this might cause too much information to come to you all, but we could do like a general tool for just comments and questions, and then we could do one specific to redistricting, and next year one specific to charter. So that's kind of where I am with things in terms of the tool. Okay. I think once it's out there, it's going to be a good tool for you all to get feedback, especially for the people who have alternative schedules and who really just want to be able to communicate with you via their computer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I guess that was kind of my thought as well. We'd have it available for general comments and feedback now, but then it would be more changeover once we had maps. It would be more focused on responding or providing comment and feedback on the map specifically, and then in the other. Yeah, I guess is that kind of what you guys, I'll open up for quick comments if that's what everyone else was thinking. I see a few hands have gone up. And Ashley, well, I see yours.
My question is, how are we going to receive the public testimony? Will it only be in person? Or I apologize if you already stated this, but I didn't hear it.
Gosh, my mute and unmute is not working today. We're working on that. So right now you can go to our website and see we have testimony tools for the council. There's a general tool, and then we load it with specific upcoming legislation. That is a neat tool because it actually delivers an email to the council members every time a submission is made. The downside to that is that it could be putting a lot of emails into your inboxes. So another way that we can do it is I can organize it sort of in a Google sheet and then give you all access to that. For some people that don't have Gmail, sometimes there may be some trouble interacting with Google. So we may need to talk about that. I may just need to email you all a spreadsheet, and I can give you updates as they come in, or every Monday I can email it to you, things like that. So those are the different ways I can work on getting you all the information, and you do not have to wait until an actual meeting to get it.
I think that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that too. Thank you, Laura. If you could compile that, and I do have Gmail, so, or if you can compile them in a spreadsheet of some sort. But yeah, I think that's be much easier than having all of us get all the emails at the same time. Cool.
Okay, yeah, we'll work on that. Let me talk to our Google experts here in the county too, and see if I can't figure out a way to kind of help with the way that some products don't play nicely with Google products. And I'll get back to you on that. We'll figure a way out to make it work.
Okay, great. All right, Christina?
Hi, thank you. I need to go back to Mr. Waddy's question. So, Mr. Waddy, you referenced communities of interest, and that sparked my brain. I just went to the county's general development plan. What we have mapped are communities of opportunity. When you say communities of interest, is that something that is simply of interest to you, or is it something that is mapped?
Communities of interest are generally, they can be mapped, but they don't necessarily have to be mapped. So it's a long list of like school districts, feeder school districts, people that there may be bus routes, there might be grocery store locations that generally frequent a particular community. It's a wide swath of categories that individual communities or neighborhoods might be able to consider part of what makes them whole, what makes them a neighborhood. And so that's what I was asking in terms of how to be able to map communities of interest that may be were considered in the previous redistricting. Some of them go by language. You know, it might be a Spanish language or another different type of language concentration that's seen in a particular neighborhood or district. And so those are aspects of what make up a community of interest, which is an aspect of our redistricting requirements and conversation.
Okay. So we're going to need to check, because what we do have and what I was thinking about when you raised that was communities of opportunity. So we're going to need to go check, and we may need to have some more communication with you to be able to generate that information.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tori?
Yeah, I was actually just going to follow up. While I'm familiar with the concept, I think the definition can be kind of fluid. So, Stephen, if you don't mind, just giving some guidelines, criteria that we might be able to think about how, because I mean, anyone is using a GIS tool, they need data to work with. So if we want to map it, you've got to be able to put a number on it. So I actually would be interested in understanding that a bit better. And then that way we can put that into consideration as we discuss this further. So maybe you can help us with that, Stephen.
I'd be happy to talk about it, or if, you know, the Office of Law probably would have a better understanding regards to how to map it and or how to define it and categorize it and put data to it. Then I would, you know, if they have the opportunity to provide that information, it also would definitely be a lot more objective than what it is that I'm trying to think about. So I would be happy to learn from them and help you with any research that I can provide.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and I'm sorry, I'm going to need to jump off of this call to get on another meeting. So I guess I'm not sure if there's any major outstanding issues we need to cover really quickly, or if not, I'm going to turn it over to Tori. Go. All right, anything else? Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, thank you. All right, good meeting. We have a plan of action. We started the data. Look forward to seeing everyone on the 16th, and I'll say have a great weekend. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, great. Thanks, Tori. Second?
Second.
Second. All right, thanks, Tom. All right, all in favor? Aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Sounds good.
Aye.
All right, guys. Thank you. All right, have a great weekend.
Can't wait to meet you all on Tuesday.
Bye.
That'll end our
Yep.
it's Tuesday, right? Everybody have a great weekend.
Yep. Thanks.